serviceable NBA big. At least now I feel like they have a professional team. I was watching them for a while last year, and I didn't even know who a lot of these players were. They still don't have much at point guard. Hardaway Jr.'s gone, but I think they have some pieces now to maybe. I mean, what they win? 17 games last year.
They were 17-65.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, as far as, maybe a 25 win team, maybe. That's my number 4.
I like that. I also think that Kyle O'Quinn is a sneak. He was down in Orlando,
right.
where nobody noticed what he could do. And I think bringing him in, and you have Lopez in front of him, or he may even over time surpass Lopez. It's hard to judge the Knicks. I mean, we've talked about Carmelo and how he's the coach killer. And, I mean, I don't really have any idea what direction you take him in. I don't know how you...
You think there's the thought now is that Carmelo is in the same space with Kobe as being players that other NBA players don't want to play with. Do you think there's any truth to that with Melo? Other NBA players don't want to play with him?
Basketball has become a popularity. Guys talk about their friends, and in today's game, I do believe that there is a big role with your star player and how he connects with the other guys. There could absolutely be some value in that. At least with Kobe, though, you knew you had a shot of winning a championship because, I mean, he was gonna. His skill set and his determination would lead you to a playoffs. He was going to play a good 65, 75 games. I don't even know with Carmelo if people even believe that he's that kind of leader from my job as a scorer and a leader type role. I don't know how you counter that. Do you have to put him with another big ego player that is a little more vocal? I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not going to put him in. I think people still want to play with Melo at this point. I just think people don't want to play in New York. I think it's better just to visit there and play. So you were at, we just finished up with number 4. What's your number 3 best situation?
My number 3 actually goes to the Milwaukee Bucks. Another team made the playoffs last year, played pretty solid in the first round, competitive, and you go out and you add Grievous Vasquez, and you add Greg Monroe. They were a team that dealt with the injury as well of a young, budding star on their team, and he'll be back next year at some point.
I forgot all about Jabari.
Yeah, at some point Jabari returns, and when he returns, you add Greg Monroe, and you now have a playmaker. With Vasquez may not be a elite point guard, shooting guard guy on your team, but his basketball IQ is high. And Jabari, any guys that you can put on the court that are going to make his job easier, he's got that killer in him that he can go out there and make it happen. So I like what Milwaukee did. I really do. They lost Jared Dudley and Ilyasova, but I think you upgraded that with the people that they picked up.
That's a good one. I'm a little bitter with Milwaukee being a Pistons fan that, we lose a homegrown big to Milwaukee. But, I like that. I forgot all about Parker coming back. So that is an interesting thing. Kidd is there trying to, to push this team, this positionless basketball type stuff. But then when you throw in Greg Monroe, who's more of a finesse big than a big finisher, powerful finisher and whatnot, that's cool. My actual take for my number 3 best situation is the Dallas Mavericks. I don't know what's going on in Rip City, but for Wes Matthews to leave to join Dallas and for them to also lose Aldridge, something is going on there with the front office, and because it's one of the better fan bases in the league, in my opinion. But I'm going to go with Cuban. I think he got it done. I'm a little skeptical or concerned about giving a max deal to a player like DeAndre Jordan, who you may or may not be able to keep on the court with, 4 or 5 minutes to go with the hack of DeAndre. It doesn't look like the NBA is going to do anything going to have any legislation to address the hack a Shaq type tactics. But I like what I see from DeAndre as far as the screen setting, the rim runs, blocking shots, contesting shots. I just don't know if he has any face-up game whatsoever. You put him 4 feet away from the basket, 3 feet away from the basket. I just don't know what you can count on him to deliver night in and night out. He did jump up and have some 18, 19, 20-point games, in the playoffs, but I just think that's because it was just matchup situations, and he just was able to exploit those. He's not going to have the same point guard that he had in L.A. that he has now. I think Barea and Devin Harris are the guys on the roster right now. But you add Wes Matthews. We'll see how he rebounds from that Achilles injury. And I didn't even look up Dirk to see if there was a significant slide for him this year versus the earlier parts of his career. I don't know how much he has in the tank, but the guy that they drafted, I think, like Anderson from Virginia, he could be that type of guy. A different game than Josh Howard, but maybe a guy that can come in and play some good quality minutes just with his body and he can drive a little bit, decent shooter, and he came from a college program that played good half-court basketball, a good system, good defense. So I think that could be one of the sleeper picks in the draft itself. So I'm going to put Dallas for my number 3.
I think Dallas is a solid pick. I'm going to read the records for the Southwest standings. You had Houston 56-26, Memphis 55-27, San Antonio 55-27, Dallas 50-32, and New Orleans 45-37. That is a brutal division. I like Dallas. I like the moves they made, but when I look from a cohesion standpoint, I'm not really sure. DeAndre Jordan when Chris Paul's been healthy, he's a solid player. When Chris Paul's not been around, he doesn't seem like he's produced nearly as well. They're talking about having their sights set on Jeremy Lin. I don't understand.
Yeah,
I don't understand that. I'm curious because Matthews is a slow half-court player.
Right.
DeAndre Jordan is a pick-and-roll type player, but you have no point guard that really is comfortable, maybe Devin Harris can go back to the Utah Devin Harris. I believe that's where isn't that where he started?
He was in New Jersey for a minute. He started in Utah, I believe.
And he had a little bit of the teachings of the pick and roll out from Utah standpoint, but they just signed Jeremy Evans, who is a backup small forward, power forward athlete, but really not offensive. I don't know. I like what they're doing as far as their activity. It's going to be a really big job for Carlisle, who I think is a great coach, to figure out a way to make it work. I mean, you have Rondo, who probably was any coach's dream, and the talent just didn't blend and it didn't mesh. But I had them in my top 5, but I pulled them out because you were going to discuss them.
All right, moving along. Again, this is Pay Me No Mind, sports and entertainment. You're on with your host, Wood, with my special guest, B. Wood. We'll get to the number 2s. We're in the... We'll get into our top 2s. We got about another 10 minutes left.
This is going to shock a lot of people, but once again, I'm looking at movement, and I'm looking at, do I think it's quality? Does it fit? Does it not fit? I tip my hat to Mr. Jordan for the first year. I'm going to go on out there and say that you actually did some things in the off season that I think will make your team a competitive team. They went out, they drafted Frank the Tank. You got Al Jefferson. I think
Frank the Tank had 19 points today earlier in a summer league game.
Listen, the guy is going to be able to play because of his IQ. He's going to find a way to find spots on there. He can shoot a jumper. He's great with the ball fakes. No, he doesn't have the physical stats that you look at in the draft and you say, oh, I got to have it. But if you want a guy that's going to mesh, you want a guy that understands the game, you want a guy that's going to figure out what he can do to help your team, you can't go wrong with him. You added Jeremy Lamb, You added Spencer Hawes. You added Batum, Matt Barnes. I mean, I think what they've done with the trades, I think they've done really good. You know, they got rid of Stevenson, so I don't know. That experiment didn't work. You let it go. You let them go right off the jump. I like what Charlotte did. I think they have a huge jump next season.
That's a pretty solid one. I didn't really keep them on the radar, but Kaminsky was actually a guy. If Winslow and Stanley Johnson weren't around, I was hoping that the Pistons might have taken a shot at, knowing that Monroe was leaving, I was hoping they might have taken a look at Kaminsky. I think he's going to have to add to his arsenal a little bit because he favored that spin move a lot into the elbow and hit the spin move. He's going to have to work on something a little differently, but I like Frank. My number 2 is actually the Spurs, who you had at number 4. LaMarcus, we're going to see what he does now with a slightly different role. I heard Brian Windhorst was on the radio saying that LaMarcus wasn't really a true elite. I don't know if that's the case or not. I know when you have a guy that puts in 230-something double-doubles, you know, in a 9-year career, he's solid. I mean, he shoots. What I like about him, you know me, I'm old school. I like mid-range shot attempts, and he definitely gives you that. I just think, you know, there's no downside in that. Danny Green stuck around. He re-signed. You know, the band is pretty much back together there. I would expect them to contend in that top 4, and you know, we'll see Kawhi continue to improve and settle into what he's going to be as a pro. So I just thought the Spurs, Coach Pop still on the sidelines. It's just they have what they need to really make a Western Conference Finals run and possibly a Finals appearance.
I agree. You know, I told you earlier I thought that they put together something special by adding Aldridge, because one thing, just like when you look at Golden State, Harrison Barnes doesn't stick out to you as an elite player. But when you can get one-on-one consistently a whole game, and when you can get put in a place in a system that highlights your strength, Aldridge is in my opinion, a great 15 and 19 jump shooter. I think he's one of the better guys in the league at it. I mean, he can shoot the fade away from out there. He can catch and shoot. He can dribble and shoot. That's his bread and butter. You look at who's there right now. Tim Duncan has made a 19-year career on shooting that shot. I think he's a great fit for that team, and in that team, he can be a somewhat great player. So.
I just wonder what becomes of his 23-24 a game. I mean, how does that... Which it doesn't matter with the Spurs philosophy. I mean, they're not dependent on one particular person. So, and then like I said, he shoots his intermediate game is pretty good. So, you know, maybe it drops down to 18 or 19 or something. But like I said, that's just personal stats. We'll get into these number ones. What's your best situation? Period.
I know people are going to say this guy is crazy, and part of this may be personal, but I think what they did in South Beach, they got the best player for what their team's need was as far as the draft goes. They did the best thing as far as the re-signing of a free agent as far as what their team needed, and keeping Dwayne Wade. I actually think, when I thought about it at first, I didn't like Goran Dragic getting his contract. But when I think about with Wade's age, you got Hassan. You know, I think Dwayne Wade, you remember when he was coached by Coach K in the Olympics, he said he's one of the smartest players. He's a very good coach on the court. He spoke as high of him as he spoke of anybody on the team. LeBron came there. I think LeBron learned a lot in his 4 years as far as how to deal with things and handle things. And now you have a young team with Winslow, you have Hassan, you have Dragic, you have hopefully Bosh. There's talks of a possible trade with San Antonio. I don't know if that's
For Bosch?
so that's what it's down the road, but they've said that Miami may be able to do a sign and trade. That's what they were talking. I don't know if that's dead